Hey there guys, it's Metro and we are back. And this one's a little different. We're going to be talking a little bit about my experience so far in the Dragonflight beta. So we've been playing the alpha a lot. We did a lot of videos and stuff on that. But this is going to be about the beta, which just started on Thursday. They gave us an opportunity to do a lot of stuff here. Kind of like if the game was launched, that's how we would be playing it. And that's exactly how I played it. So I took some time to level my character. The pre-made, they're really low item level. I transferred my actual character, which is like 100 item levels higher. The pre-mades are like 180, but my actual character, a 4 set with legendaries, all this stuff. I'm not exactly sure what is and isn't working right now. Doesn't really matter. Even if all the stuff gets disabled or enabled, you're still going to try to replace it as soon as possible. But I came on with my real character, I wanted to see what it was like, because obviously the leveling process is something that really does have to be fun. You're going to do it probably dozens of times. Some of you guys, especially with some of these alts, you guys are doing this many, many, many times. I'm not necessarily doing it too often, but the first time through has to be good. So I came on here. I wanted to see exactly what it was like. I had done a few of the zones like different times on the alpha, but never really like actually as a whole. And I also wanted to test out dungeons and stuff along the way. And I came on and honestly wasn't great. I have to say the leveling process was not good at all. I'll give you guys a little bit of a summary of it. Basically, I try always to just kind of get through the main storyline and then figure out what's left. Now, in the past, I would say that, you'd have an experience where the main storyline is kind of a big bulk of what you needed, but then Shadowlands started to change that. In fact, if you remember leveling in Shadowlands even on launch night, you only did the main storyline. You would actually have like 2 full levels left to get. So you pretty much had to do dungeons. And actually, no, you know what I remember now? They couldn't even go advanced to Ardenweald. You couldn't get out of Ardenweald if you were not, 57, I think it was. And you'd be like 55 at the end of Ardenweald or something like that. So you'd be doing dungeons, you'd be doing side quests and stuff like that, trying to get what you needed. And unfortunately, that same problem appears to be here in Dragonflight. Now, of course, it's very early and a lot can change. I've already made a post about some things changing on the beta here. But I am worried about this because I'm going to tell you right now, it's crazy how many quests there actually are. There are, I think there's like hundreds. I don't even know if hundreds is fair. Like, it might be 500s. Like, it's ridiculous. There are so many. There's like hubs that you go to and you do story quests, and then there's like 10 optional quests. So that obviously wasn't the case in Shadowlands. But, I avoided all of those. I didn't do any of them until I finished the main storyline. So I finished the main storyline, and that took me, it was kind of slow at times, but I really had a lot of trouble, like, parsing what some of the quests were. I feel like I really, I was clueless. I was lost on a couple of them, but it ends in an absolutely spectacular way. I won't, necessarily spoil that for you, even though I think kind of silly people worried about spoilers on content they're going to do dozens of times, but it's very good. So if you want to see that fresh for the first time, well, you'll have that opportunity. I won't be the one to ruin it for you, but it's really, really good. And I was disappointed how, well, I wasn't disappointed, but I was kind of sad that it ended, because it's such a great ending in the final zone of Dragonflight that I just didn't really want it to end. And I was also sad to feel like, oh, wow, I still need 2 full levels. So I actually did, I got to only 68. So, and it was like 1 bar into 68. I had just barely dinged. So that's, you can't really be blaming Blizzard for that. I just don't really know what to say about it, but I will tell you it wasn't fun. And I knew that the whole way. Like, when I got to the 3rd zone and I was only 65, I'm like, yeah, we're in trouble here. But so, who knows what's going to happen there. The leveling process is not my favorite part of the expansion, let's put it that way. Launch night's going to be awesome. I always love that, but... this was also with War Mode on, I have to tell you. But War Mode only 15% on the beta for Alliance. I never actually saw another player either, which was really weird. I did level relatively quick. I got add-ons like Leatrix Plus to automate, like, just auto hand-in add-on, to get automatically through quests. It did make it a lot faster. So I think it took me about 14 hours to level those 10 times. And that's not great. That's not really good at all. But, of course, it's the first time through. I had no idea what I was doing for some quests. I did run into some quests that I'm not gonna say they were bugged, but they definitely weren't. The things that were showing up on the screen were very odd compared to what you expected to have to do there. And there was one quest in particular that the description was just very, very misleading. It's actually one of the last quests where you actually have to go through different parts of the zone to actually finish the quest. So you think like, oh, I have a quest in my inventory, I need to finish it, but you actually take it with you for like an hour or something like that. Like it goes on forever. Very strange quest. So it wasn't normal. Like that's not a very normal type of quest. I did some dungeons along the way. They gave extremely little experience. They don't actually have like a completion reward right now. So yeah, that's not necessarily, that's probably changing, obviously. Who knows though? I also want to tell you I did do some archaeology and some, like chromie time to test some things out to see what would actually occur. And no changes there. It's still exactly like it was in Shadowlands. If you want to not level in Dragonflight, well, that's possible, but it's very, very, very slow. I actually would say it's not as slow as it has been in the past, in past expansions. Like, they basically really don't want you doing that in the past. Like, they would give you, like, single-digit experience or some things, but I did chromie time. I killed a bunch of rares. I killed I looted a bunch of treasures, and I did a lot of archaeology. And honestly, archaeology was not, it was kind of competitive. If you guys haven't seen, I did a whole playthrough where I only leveled through archaeology, and I bet a lot of people don't know how good of a way to level that is, especially if you really maximize it. Like if you have lots of hearthstones or lots of quick travel, I feel like a dwarf mage would be like the best way to possibly maximize that. I didn't do any of that here. I just messed around with it, and I did get probably about one full level total. I tried it a couple different nights. It's really good with the rested. If you ever have rested and you want to get some quick levels, archaeology is probably the way to go. But anyway, so yeah, we missed. I didn't do any of the side quests. I had to go back and do them, or archaeology, or rares, or whatever else. And yeah, it took me. The last two levels were about 3 hours each, whereas the first 8 levels were probably like about an hour. Yeah, it was more like an hour, hour and a half, maybe. So obviously I messed up, and maybe that'll change. But I'm telling you, there's a ridiculous number of quests. It's actually kind of crazy. But now we are max level, and we started to do some heroic 5-mans, and this is the rest of the video. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my thoughts on Blood DK, because it's actually kind of crazy. I didn't know what to expect. I thought, when we were looking at the talents, we made a video on this like a previous week, and I'm looking at these talents, talking about Umbilicus Eternus, talking about the Gloom Ward, the Absorb shield increase. We're talking about the thing where you get extra blood shields. I'm looking at these things and I'm like, there's no way. It just doesn't really sound like it's going to happen, right? But it's just perfect. It is so freaking good. It's unbelievable. It's actually crazy to me because I'm having so much fun playing Blood DK in Season 4 of Shadowlands that I cannot imagine, having even more fun with it elsewhere. It's actually more fun on the beta. And this is at the very infancy of, you have no haste, you have no stats, you have no interesting stuff. Now, granted, we don't know what we're going to get in this expansion. Could be nothing. I assume there'll be a tier set. There'll be something spicy along the way that'll make it even more interesting. But yeah, realistically, we do probably have a lot of what you might expect to get. And I think you see in this footage, man, we are doing some powerful numbers already. Now, there's really one or two things that are huge outliers. So I do want to take a look at that. But in general, I think the talents are excellent. And, outside of constantly not letting these fears go through, or, not stopping the fears and letting them go through, we are really, I'm feeling very powerful in these dungeons that I've done. I've done probably about 5 heroics at the time of recording this. I wanted to get this video out while my thoughts were fresh, but I do plan on doing a lot more throughout Monday, Sunday night, and Monday. And obviously you'll be watching this Monday. But there's been a lot of problems with the beta 2 where talents kept getting reset, and I don't know if that's going to get fixed or what, but it's been like a real mess, to be honest, because you have to really fiddle with it just to be able to actually play your character. But outside of that, man, it's been a real joy. And I'll tell you right now, I spent a lot of time getting my add-on set up. I was actually really spending a lot of time on this. I'm actually shocked. Usually when the beta's out, I don't really care for it too much because it's kind of just a pain to be sitting there and dealing with things that you don't have to really deal with on live, like bugs or add-ons not working and stuff like that. But the big add-ons like Plater, weak ores, details, these add-ons are like so well kept up now that these people were literally they had these add-ons working within like 1 hour of the beta being out. So that's really impressive. But I want to take a look at some of the, we have some footage here of some actual like finished runs and like some overall charts. Okay. I do want to take a look at that because I think you'd be interested in seeing some of it, to be honest. So we're taking a look. This was the dungeon that we just were in, and I took basically like a little video of the overall charts. And I just want to show you because, I think, yeah, this would be very interesting for some people. So you're going to see immediately here that, the dungeon we did just do is very high volume. So Shattering Bone right now, guys, if you haven't seen it or you haven't heard of it, it's absolutely bonkers. And, that's one of the outliers. I think that has to get fixed because it has to get nerfed, that is, because, well, I don't know, man. I haven't seen other tanks, but, I'm really shocked at how much damage that's doing. And then the other big thing is, like, I'm really shocked at how much Death Strike is doing already. Usually Death Strike at the end of expansions gets to be really wild. But I do think, we're not really even taking that much damage. So I'm able to really heal up a lot. And I don't know necessarily if that's through the talents, because there's obviously talents enhancing Death Strike. But there's, some things that are really, really benefiting. We're really benefiting from it right now. I think that's Umbilicus. And I also think that is the Frost Shield, which is from it used to be a Frost talent. I can never remember the name of it. Permafrost or something like that. Whenever you auto attack, it puts that shield up. And you see that is just a very early basic talent that just is giving me like a layer of 4 to 5% of my healing over the course of a dungeon. And I think it's even stronger because of Gloom Ward, which is buffing that. So I'm really happy with that. I feel like Blood DK feels very sturdy right now. Usually at the beginning of an expansion, they're very weak. They're very flimsy. You can really feel the lack of stats. I also wanted to quickly show the actual healers and stuff too, because this is kind of shocking to me. Here we see Resto Shaman, Acid Rain doing a lot of work. If you guys haven't seen Acid Rain, it's a very cool ability. Basically, whenever you put down the Healing Rain, it does damage too. We certainly saw a lot of, these new Dragonkin, or whatever, the Evokers as well, along the way in these things. But here was another one that I thought was interesting, was Windwalker. 18, almost 19% of this guy's damage was the statue, which is a Brewmaster option too. This is the final point in the main tree that looks like the Windwalker portion of the main tree. So Brewmaster might be doing some absurd AoE. And look at our friend BM here. Beast Cleave looking good. Lots of pet damage, but still pretty struggling on that overall. And somebody left in the middle of this dungeon, so we actually got a second guy. But yeah, let's look at some of the other ones here because we have even more dungeons. So this one, I switched from, because the thing I'm worried about with the Shattering Bone is, first of all, that it's going to get nerfed, and second of all, that it has no defensive repercussion whatsoever. It's completely non-defensive. It's purely offense. Obviously, we do have a lot of leech, and I assume that is helping with leech, but yeah, it worries me because I know the way I play right now. If you were to tell me let's take a big offensive talent instead of a defensive talent, I would say absolutely not. But the problem is this is not really that kind of system where we have, only 7 options. We have 50 options or something like that we can choose here, So it's well, we could probably put 2 points into massive offense, right? It is 2 points though, and I do worry a bit about it because I feel like there are some good choices that I'm not taking right now. I did try some new things out in the subsequent recordings here, but this one I took it off, and instead I took A-Bomb Limb. The first dungeon I took no capstone for the main talents, just to see, because there's a lot of really good points in that main tree. I feel like that main tree is built really well for blood and terribly for the other specs. So you see A-Bomb Limb doing good, but man, it does so much damage when it's actually up. I cannot believe how much damage it actually does. And again, we're seeing a lot of these dragons, so I really don't know anything about them, but just probably get used to this because I feel like this is not going to be something that you're going to get away from. We also had an Assassination Rogue in this group, and we actually had the same healer again. So again, Acid Rain looking really good on that chart. Let's take a look at the next one though. This dungeon I actually had some I DC'd partway through it, but as you see, we have only Evokers, which is really funny to me. But even the healer. So this dungeon I went back to Shattering Bone and I kept A-Bomb Limb. So unlike the first one, we basically have 2. A-Bomb Limb is actually a very good defensive point now though, because you're definitely using Tombstone, right? If you're taking Shattering Bone, you have to take Tombstone. It's not optional. Oh, well, technically it's not optional. It's a terrible talent point that's on top of Tombstone, so you're pretty much always taking Tombstone. And I think it's a lot easier to use because then you're not constantly worried about spamming Heart Strike like we are now. So I feel a lot more comfortable using it. I'm getting a lot better with using it. And A-Bomb Limb is helping dramatically because I know that now I have both Dancing Rune Weapon and A-Bomb Limb to keep my stacks high. I can use it without fear. But as you see, this is a dramatic, like if we took those two things out, that is the equivalent of almost 30% of my DPS going away. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty nice, man. I'll tell you what, it's really good. Well, we also have this tip of the spear, which is a trinket as well. We got a trinket along the way. Not a dungeon trinket though, so yeah, I haven't really gotten actual dungeon trinkets yet. But and we, of course, we don't even know what trinkets are going to be. But I think a recurring theme you're going to see with the healing section is that there's a lot of absorbs stacking up, right? So this is a trinket as well, Earthen Ward, but we have Tombstone, Death Strike. Well, actual blood. Whoa, 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 whoa! Blood Shield is actually my top healing in this. I did DC, like I said, in the middle of it, so we only got about half the dungeon. That's strange to me. It probably means I wasn't really taking a lot of damage there. But yeah, as we see a lot of absorbs stacking up. And then, of course, I'm not even really using AMS or anything like that. But there is a lot of potential for talents to help with AMS as well if you need it. I just want to quickly look back because I did take a Bloodworm. So, yeah, right now, Voracious and Bloodworm are both options, unlike in Shadowlands. And, as we see, that only added about 2% of my DPS. So, yeah, not great. It actually did less damage than Marrow Rend, which is not really what you want to see. But, yeah, it did do a fair amount of healing, actually. So, I think, that's not a bad option there, but I think there are better options. There's really like 1 or 2 points that I'm just not really sure where to spend. But yeah, if you're taking, obviously, if you're taking Shattering Bone, then yeah, you're committing pretty deep into the tree because I really feel like I can't play without Umbilicus. And there's also that extra Mastery Shield, which, as you see, is paying tremendous dividends for me. So, but we got, six dragons in the group here, so no reason to look at that any further. But then this one is the final one I did here tonight, and this one was actually the Ruby Life Pools. I actually done this dungeon a bunch on stream a while ago, and I know this dungeon very, very well, so I was able to maximize my damage very well. And as you see, I actually did more damage than one of the DPS. But of course, that guy's playing Fire Mage. What a surprise. But anyway, yeah, you see Shattering Bone just absolutely crushing it. Dramatic top DPS, 21.8% of my damage, and A-bomb limb in there too. So yeah, I'm actually, you know what I'm saying, this is really looking like it's going to be typically in the beginning of an expansion. Blood DK has a couple faults. They have a very low snap threat. They have very problems keeping up high enough haste to keep up your defense, to have enough runic power going in for big death strikes. And even though that is still true, I did feel like that in some of the dungeons. They're kind of challenging, actually, these heroics. But I'm pretty just under geared, I think, for them. Yeah, they definitely they didn't really do that spike damage that I needed. And you'll see this on the charts here when you look at Umbilicus. Umbilicus is like probably like 90% overheal. Okay, I actually got one that was 447k, and I have 205k health. So yeah, you're not going to take 447k in a heroic 5-man, no matter what you're doing. In that period of time. So yeah, that could really change. But again, actually, wow, I didn't even notice this. See, they have the same icon, so when it's happening, I'm just like, oh, that's Death Strike. But yeah, Blood Shield, and then Umbilicus, and then Death Strike. So wild, 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 wild. I love this. I love this mastery play. I would love to be, honestly, just a full mastery tank. I think I could see myself doing that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. What are you thinking about talent-wise? What are your thoughts on what we've seen? Leave some thoughts on the Shattering Bone thing. I think that gets nerfed, unfortunately. I think it probably can eat a 50% nerf, and it would still be an incredibly powerful talent. The thing is, there's a couple things to think about with that talent. One, it's really only very valuable in 5-man. So if you nerf it too hard, then it becomes useless for raids. But the problem is there is another talent that gives you big single target DPS at the end of the tree too. So I feel like you could balance both of those across from each other. The other thing is it, is right underneath or right on top of Bone Storm. So I don't really like using Bone Storm nowadays, but you can actually take Bone Storm now, and that's a very interesting single talent point, right? So that could be even more damage potentially, certainly in an AoE situation. You could really go all in on AoE. But the other thing about that is you have to have Death and Decay down for it to really do good damage. So if you're kiting a lot, if there's a situation where the meta is a lot of kiting, not only does the talent do poor because you're not reaching like the minimum time spent in between the bones shattering, but you're also not in your death and decay very frequently. So yeah, that talent just becomes really useless at that point. So we'll see what, you know, things look like in the beginning, what Mythic Plus dungeons there are, and if there's a lot of high volume. Because I'll tell you right now, since Shattering Bone has no AoE cap seemingly, I don't know that for sure, but it doesn't look like it does. And you have things like Tombstone, we're putting D&D down a lot. And you're able to just, you know, if you have a lower Karazhan, let's put it that way. If you have a lower, if I took this build into lower Karazhan, it would just light this dungeon up. Like, I would be top damage overall because it has no, it's a huge AoE cap. It's constantly happening. And on top of that, Umbilicus would be overpowered as hell in there. We'd be getting like that pack where I had 447k. That was probably on like a lower Kara size pack. I pulled like 3 packs together in Uldaman, and there was probably like 15 mobs there. So obviously you're gonna get a really big Umbilicus at that point. But, you know, 15 mob pull, pretty common in lower Kara. It's like 50% of the pulls are that big. So, yeah, if there's dungeons like that, you know, if there's situations, who knows what dungeons they're going to add. Right now, we know only Court of Stars and Temple of Jade Serpent, and neither of those have very high volume. But, yeah, you know, if we do get, you know, maybe like a Junkyard again or something like, you know, Freehold or Mechagon. Wait, what's the name of it? Motherload. If we get something like that coming back someday, DK is really gonna shine in there. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys. These are mine, and I'm really optimistic about this. I do think we'll see some nerfs to, I think we'll see a nerf to Gloom Ward. I think we will see a nerf to Shattering Bone, and I do think they're probably gonna have to change the way Umbilicus interacts with some things because it's just bonkers. It's just bonkers. We're getting a 440k shield when we only have 200k health, and that is completely unoptimized. Like, I didn't, you know, I just literally just pressed the spell. So we'll see what happens, man. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.